What did I know? I was a foreign kid who was trying to fit in any way I could. I was just relieved that wasn't the day I lost my virginity. Now that my shorts were halfway sagged and my dignity was still somewhat intact, I was ready for some sporting. Much to my dismay, we had to play American football that day. I had never touched a football in my life. I didn't even know what the Super Bowl was. I tried to watch an American football game once. It has so many rules that it was impossible to understand. What is a first down? What the hell is pass interference? It sounded like a made-up sport some bros came up with when they were wasted. Like one guy said, "Bro, you can't push me when I'm catching a ball, bro. That's like pass interference, bro." That's how most foreigners see American football. I was lost on the field. Marquise was throwing the ball, or as I later learned, playing the so-called quarterback. I stood wide open in the middle of the field because nobody bothered to cover this little foreign kid in tidy whities. But Marquise believed in me. He took a chance on my tiny geisha hands. He flung the ball in a heart spiral right in my chest with his cannon of an arm. With the quick reaction I developed from ping pong, I miraculously caught the ball by pinning it against my body. It was thrown so hard, the momentum took me to the ground. I lay flat on my back clutching the football, not sure what had just happened. Then Marquis stood over me and said, "Good catch! First down!" And that was when I fell in love with American football. Now I'm in 3 fantasy football leagues, and I watch 7 hours of NFL every Sunday with a 6-pack of Bud Light like a red-blooded American screaming, "First down!" There were these 2 scoundrels in my PE class, David and Diego. Some might call them bullies. I just thought these dudes were douchebags who talked a lot of shit. Nothing I couldn't handle, though. Every day in PE class, David and Diego would fire off some trash talk to me, usually along the lines of my mom being fat. I was never bothered by those words, knowing that my mother was a skinny woman. One day, we're all waiting in line to hit some baseballs. David and Diego just wouldn't stop. They kept making stupid comments to me and then laughing amongst themselves at my expense. Then Diego got really close to me and started whispering the trash talk into my ear. "Your mom is a fat ass," he whispered. The words didn't bother me, but his hot breath in my ear got on my nerves, and it triggered something primal inside of me. I did something I'd never done in my life. I kicked his ass. I'd never taken any martial arts classes, but there must have been something embedded in my Chinese DNA. Out of instinct, I turned around and roundhouse kicked Diego squared in the gut. He gasped and folded over. Then I jumped up as high as I could, and I came down with a massive karate chop to the back of his neck. He collapsed to his knees. Fucking asshole. My adrenaline was pumping, and I was ready to finish him. David quickly jumped in between us and screamed, "Stop! Stop!" I stood still in my kung fu stance and stared them down. I saw the fear in their eyes as David picked Diego up from the ground. David said to him, "Hey, don't fuck with this kid. He's fucking Bruce Lee, man." From that day on, nobody said one more word about my mama ever again. The public school hustle. In second period science class, I sat across from Juan Menjivar. He was like the Mexican Bart Simpson, a notorious troublemaker. He wasn't the nicest kid per se, but he was fun to be around. He would always make fun of people and disrupt the class. The teacher thought he was a nightmare, but I've always thought Juan was one of my first friends in America. I became friends with Juan when we struck a business deal early on in the school year when he sold me his lunch tickets. Juan had government-issued lunch tickets. They're basically food stamps for students from underprivileged households. Each ticket could be exchanged for a free lunch that normally cost $5, and Juan would sell his tickets for $3. He would go up and down the lunch line every day and ask, "Does anyone need a ticket?" I always thought you'd be a fool not to buy from one of these lunchtime pushers. You got the same exact lunch for a $2 discount every day. Even my mom would think that was a good deal. So I quickly raised my hand and said, "Yeah, I'll take one." Juan became my lunch ticket dealer for every lunch in John Burroughs. A few weeks went by, and I thought I should strike a long-term deal with Juan to lock in my savings. So I proposed to Juan. I'll buy you a whole week's tickets, and I'll pay you $10 for them on Monday. This way, you don't have to come out and work every day. You can just have $10 in your pocket every week and enjoy your lunchtime. Juan tried to make some quick calculations in his head, but he soon gave up. The American public school system has failed him. He said, okay, $10, but you have to give me your chocolate milk every day. Without hesitation, I said, deal. I didn't care much for my Altadena boxed milk anyway, and I could use the extra dollar I saved to buy whatever soda I wanted. That was the first open trade agreement between China and Mexico on American soil. I was owning these public school educated kids in the lunchroom, and I was owning the public school curriculum in the classroom. Soon, I became an honor student at John Burroughs. I didn't think I was particularly special. The American educational system was just particularly easy compared to the high-pressure educational system in Hong Kong. In the States, most kids are still learning the multiplication table in 7th grade. In Hong Kong, we've all learned algebra by 6th grade. Aside from English, every subject in the U.S. was at least 2 years behind compared to Hong Kong. My family came to this country hoping for the best college education, but we didn't realize how pedestrian the public school system was leading up to it. But I didn't mind it at all. I figured I could just cruise through school and score some easy A's. I was like a 20-year-old Dominican baseball player using a fake birth certificate to play in the Little League. It was awesome. But my parents had other plans. They wanted me to be on the fast track. They wanted me to be in the so-called magnet program. So my dad went to have a chat with the principal. Dad took me to school and brought all of my textbooks. He stormed into the principal's office and slammed the textbooks on the principal's desk. My son has learned this already. He is smart. You need to put him in the smartest classes. The principal was intimidated by this middle-aged Asian man with a comb-over. She responded, Sir, your son is already on a good track. He's in the advanced math class. That's too easy. When can he learn calculus? What about game theory? My dad had this weird obsession with game theory. I don't know why. It's an advanced mathematical prediction model. To him, that was like the holy grail of high-end math. I did end up learning it in college, but I forgot all about it because, like most things they taught me in school, it was completely useless. The principal said, the highest level math class we have is algebra. The best I can do is put him in the algebra class. Dad turned to me and asked, do you already know algebra? I hesitated for a second. Then I replied, no, not really. I lied. I had already learned algebra in Hong Kong, but I wanted to continue my scam through the American school system. I soon became an honor student, and my dad proudly rocked the "My son is an honor student in John Burroughs Middle School" bumper sticker on the back of his Pontiac Grand Am. I would say that was a win-win. Ooh, you guys gotta check out your PDF. There's a really cool Student of the Month picture here. Man, I look like I was 8 years old. Good grades were nice, but I wanted much more than that. I wanted to be accepted by my peers. I wanted girls. I wanted to experience the American teenage life. I got to an all-boys school from 1st to 7th grade in Hong Kong, so I literally had zero interactions with the opposite sex. Now I was thrown into a brand new country with a different language and white girls who were 6 inches taller than me. What was I supposed to do? Multiply all that by the awkwardness of puberty? Forget about it. I had no chance. I was more lost than a dog watching Game of Thrones. Really? Did I write that? That was kind of shitty. But it's okay. We'll move on from that. There was this really cute girl at John Burroughs named Allie, or so I was told. She was a tall, skinny white girl who looked like Molly Sims, every Asian man's dream. She was an all-American beauty. I stared at her every day during lunch, wishing I had enough courage to just say hi to her. She would sit by the basketball courts with her friends, and I would stand 20 yards away at the lunch tables, secretly admiring her. It kind of sounds creepy now, but I was in 8th grade. It was super cute. Juan would egg me on. Just go talk to her, man. It's not a big deal. It was the biggest deal in my mind. It was life and death. Just go. He pushed me in the back and I stumbled 2 steps forward. I was so scared that I quickly cowered back to my safe distance. I firmly stood my feeble ground. Juan continued, okay, fine. I'll go talk to her and tell her Jimmy really likes you. I grabbed his arm so hard he could have dislocated his shoulder. No! I shouted. That was perhaps my only chance, and I was too scared to even have a friend talk to her for me. Come on, Jimmy. And for the rest of the school year, I stared at her from a distance as if I had a restraining order. And for the rest of my teenage years, I dreamt about having a girl like Allie. I kept my easy grade scam going and graduated John Burroughs with straight A's. And I got my lunch on a government discount through Juan. I survived my first year in America by constantly assimilating and adapting. It was exhausting. But my family was the one constant that kept me sane. Whenever I felt lost in school, I could always count on coming home for a home-cooked Shanghainese dinner. It was a blessing to have a buffet year at middle school before being judged by the unforgiving teenage peers in high school. It was a year of American cultural boot camp, a year for me to learn English, a year for me to assimilate. I went into high school with my pants sagged, reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, and ready to catch some footballs. America! Chapter 3. How to Thug Life. My nuclear family has always been the rock in my ever-changing life. We settled into our new lives after our first year in America. My dad had gotten a steady job as a financial advisor, my mom worked as a teller for a Chinese bank, and my brother got into UCLA. Every Asian parent's dream. On the surface, everything was seemingly working out perfectly for this immigrant family. But while I was trying to fit in school, my parents were dealing with their own struggles as adult immigrants. My dad landed a job as a financial advisor at Merrill Lynch, but it was a commission-based job. He didn't know many people here in America yet, let alone people who would trust him to invest their money. He always acted like everything was fine, but I could hear the arguments between him and my mom about the mounting credit card debts. I felt responsible being a vestige in that family. And I stopped asking for the newest Jordans or the newest video games. I'd rather wear flip-flops to school than be homeless. Mom had an especially hard time assimilating to America. Her English wasn't very sharp, and the language barrier kept her from getting the job she wanted. She took a job as a menial bank teller in a Chinese bank 20 miles away, barely making minimum wage. Aside from hanging out with some family friends, she never found her footing in the community. Mom was quite often lost during English conversations. She would politely just nod and smile. When a foreign person doesn't understand something, instead of saying, "Pardon me," they would just nod their head and smile, Yeah. Behind that cordial smile, I knew she felt terribly uncomfortable. Mom got a job offer from Shanghai 2 years after we moved to LA. It was a general manager position at a chic clothing store opened by a famous Chinese artist. It was exactly the kind of job she loved and thrived at back in Hong Kong. It would also be a sizable pay raise from being a bank teller and some much-needed income for the family. But this would also mean she would have to move to Shanghai without us. We had a serious family discussion on whether or not she should take the job and go to Shanghai. I still remember that day vividly. My dad is an old-school guy. He wanted her to stay because there's nothing more important than keeping the family together. But I knew her mind was already made up. She said to me, "Jimmy, I'm just going there for work. I will always come back and visit." The thought of her being a visitor in my life was devastating. I cried, "Mom, I don't want you to go, but do whatever you want." I stormed in my room and buried my face in my pillow. She left for Shanghai a week later, and she lived there for the next 10 years. I was sad, angry, and confused. Deep down, I understood why she left, but it was way too much for a 15-year-old to process. Mom's decision to go to Shanghai was the first time the four of us had ever been separated. Being the youngest in the family, it hit me especially hard. I was raised to be the obedient Chinese boy. I was raised to be the obedient Chinese boy. I was raised to be the obedient Chinese boy. I was raised to be the obedient Chinese boy. I was raised to be the obedient Chinese boy. I was raised to be the obedient Chinese boy. I was raised to be the obedient Chinese boy. I was raised to be the obedient Chinese boy. I was raised to be the obedient Chinese boy. I was raised to be the obedient Chinese boy. I was raised to be the obedient Chinese boy. I was raised to be the obedient Chinese boy. I was raised to be the obedient Chinese boy. I was raised to be the obedient Chinese boy. I was raised to be the obedient Chinese boy. I was raised to be the obedient Chinese boy. I was raised to be the obedient Chinese boy. I was raised to be the obedient Chinese boy. I was raised to be the obedient Chinese boy. I was raised to be the obedient Chinese boy. I was raised to be the obedient but my mom seemed to have chosen the American independence spirit to pursue her dreams. I didn't know what to believe in anymore. It took me a long time to come to terms with her leaving. I felt hurt. I felt resentful. I felt abandoned by my own mother. The first night after she left, my brother was out with his college friends, so it was just me and my dad at the lonesome dinner table. It felt awfully empty. The usually joyous and rowdy family dinner table was completely silent. My dad tried his best to help me cope with this in his matter-of-fact way. It's just me and you now. Mom is not coming back. Get used to that. Eat. I couldn't swallow a bite that night. Mom would call us to check in every night when it was daytime in Shanghai, but I didn't want to talk to her. My dad literally had to press the phone to my face so I'd say hi and bye. She came back for a month every year, but I couldn't really enjoy that time, knowing that she was just going to leave again. The world didn't look quite the same anymore. The contentment I found at home was gone. My family, the only thing I could count on to be a constant in my life, had changed, just like everything else. I couldn't be the obedient Chinese family boy anymore, even if I wanted to. I had no choice but to grow up to be an independent American man. 90210. After graduating from John Burroughs Middle School, I was on track to go to Fairfax High School in the Los Angeles Unified School District. My dad might be foreign, but he knew the LAUSD was a cesspool full of gangs, metal detectors, and teenage pregnancy. So in an act of brilliance and desperation, he used my grandpa's address to register my school district so I could go to the prestigious Beverly Hills High School, the alma mater of Hollywood stars like Angelina Jolie, Betty White, and John Travolta. I didn't care about all the posh stigma of Beverly Hills. I was just glad that I got a second chance to establish who I was in a brand new school district. In John Burroughs, I solidified myself as the foreign kid who didn't know how to sag his pants. Now I had the chance to use the American training I learned in middle school to show everyone I knew all the words to the Pledge of Allegiance like it was a Britney Spears song. Beverly Hills High School was nothing like the TV show 90210. First of all, not everyone was white and they didn't look like they were 35. Most people picture Beverly Hills High School as this glamorous high school with beautiful teenagers who have very cool adult problems. In reality, it was just a public school with a ton of Persian kids who drove Beamers. It was also a predominantly Jewish school, which was awesome because with all the Jewish holidays off, as well as the Christian holidays. While other kids were praying and fasting during the days off on Rosh Hashanah and Passover, I was happily playing Grand Theft Auto and eating pork chops. In high school, everyone was part of a clique, and they had a specific hangout spot at lunch. The cool athletes sat in front of the swim gym, the skaters sat on the front lawn, and the Persians with the fat Beamers roamed the cafeteria. It was like the scene in Clueless where Alicia Silverstone introduces all the groups. As a matter of fact, research for Clueless was done at Beverly Hills High School, and our real English teacher, Mr. Hall, played the principal who introduces Brittany Murphy in the movie. That was his claim to fame in Hollywood, and everybody in school thought Mr. Hall was a big-time celebrity. As the new fish that didn't come from the Beverly Hills Elementary School track, I was once again amongst a sea of strangers. I didn't know anyone going into my first day of high school, and I didn't belong to any of those cliques. With no place to hang out at lunch, I just stood with my back against the lockers, hoping nobody would notice me, quietly eating my weird Chinese lunch that my dad had packed for me. My usual lunch was Chinese food my dad made from the night before, packed in a Tupperware. Anything from pork belly with pickled vegetables to eel braised in soy sauce. Once a week, my dad packed me a Hot Pocket. It wasn't your normal American Hot Pocket with ham and cheese. It was a hot pouch filled with sticky rice bought from the Chinese grocery store. It looked like astronaut food, but it smelled like the back alley of Chinatown. To be honest, it was pretty delicious. But the sticky rice pouch definitely didn't help me look like a normal, cool American kid. I badly wanted to find an identity so I could belong. Is there a group for short kids? Is there a group for kids who used to play ping pong? And as much as I didn't want to be the foreign kid, is there a group for foreign kids? An old but energetic Chinese art teacher in Beverly High named Po Lau hosted the school's Chinese Culture Club. It wasn't really a club with a mission statement. It was just a bunch of Chinese students gathering in Po Lau's classroom playing cards and video games at lunch. As much as I wanted to be American, the Chinese Culture Club became my lunchtime refuge. I hung out with Po Lau and the 3 only other Chinese kids in school, eating our weird Chinese lunches every day. It felt like visiting my uncle's house in Hong Kong. Po Lau would even heckle us with his terrible jokes and a thick Cantonese accent. Hey, where is your playing cards? We're playing with them right now, Po. You have red cards and black cards, right? Yeah. But where is your green card? He folded over laughing like a madman over his own shitty punchline, while we shook our heads in embarrassment for him. The Chinese Culture Club was a nice safety net, but it felt like a regression. I didn't want to spend the next 4 years of high school hibernating with 3 other Chinese kids inside of a dank classroom. I could have done that back in Hong Kong. I wanted to have an all-American high school adolescent experience. I wanted to play in the homecoming football game. I wanted to take the road trip in my dad's car, and I wanted to go to prom with a white girl. I didn't care about hanging out with the cool kids, but I was tired of being the foreign kid. All I wanted to be was a normal American kid. I met my first non-Chinese friend in Beverly Hills High during the second semester of freshman year. Jeremy was a Persian kid on the football team, but he didn't act particularly Persian or particularly like a football jock. We hit it off making fun of the other kids in our 6th period computer class. Yes, this was, I think, 2001. There were computer classes. Jeremy and his friends had a table on the top floor next to the cafeteria, and I started to sneak away from the Chinese Culture Club to hang out with them. They were the most diverse group of dudes I'd ever seen since the We Are the World music video. Jeremy and his cousin Phil Yadagari were Persians who were into normal American teenager stuff like Star Wars, Madden, and the Justice League. Zaki Hashem was an honor student from Bangladesh. Bo Kim was a quiet Korean immigrant. Chris O'Connor was a tall, lanky, half-white, half-Native American dude who wore t-shirts 3 sizes too big. And Derek Wah was an ABC, an American-born Chinese, whose parents were also from Shanghai, and he spoke Shanghainese. When a Shanghainese person finds another Shanghainese in America, it's like finding a best friend who has the same birthday and who also happens to be a long-lost cousin. It's an instant connection. The best part was that Derek and I could make fun of everyone else in Shanghainese. Derek, Jeremy, Phil, Zaki, Bo, Chris, and I soon became best friends in Beverly High. Nobody in this group fit into any particular high school archetypes, and nobody cared to. This group of mishmash friends became my clique for the rest of my high school career. We weren't the coolest kids in school, but we weren't nerds either. We didn't really care what others thought about us. I'll always picture the American high school experience as the handsome, white high school quarterback scoring a game-winning touchdown at homecoming, then slow dancing with the head cheerleader, who's also white, at the homecoming dance. But this diverse group of human beings from different backgrounds reflected an even more truthful version of America, a country of immigrants. We never did anything cool like partying or underage drinking. We just threw around the football after school then played Madden at Phil's house. I had a hard curfew to go home for dinner every night. If I wasn't home by 7, my dad would call me and scream bloody murder in angry Shanghainese. Are you dead? No, I'm at Jeremy's house playing video games. If you are not dead, then why are you not home for dinner? I will come back later, Dad. Then my dad would switch gear to some classic Asian parent guilt tripping. Do you think I am dead? What? No. Then why do you disrespect your father like that? Dad, I'll come home for dinner now. And he hung up. I'm pretty sure these phone calls emotionally scarred me for life. Most American kids would have probably rebelled and said, screw you, Dad. You're not the boss of me. But I couldn't. Disrespecting your elders was the ultimate sin in Chinese culture. And most of all, I empathized with my dad. My mom was gone and my brother was in college. I was the only thread in our family that he could hang on to. I couldn't bear the burden of leaving my dad alone for dinner. As much as I wanted to hang out at Jeremy's house, I went home for dinner with my dad every night. BET Rap City. Jeremy, Phil, and Chris were big fans of rappers like Tupac, Snoop Dogg, and Bone Thugs and Harmony. I never heard of any of those names before, and I felt left out whenever they talked about hip-hop music. My dad always complained that rap music was too noisy and it sounded like Buddhist monks reciting a poem. We grew up listening to Michael Jackson, Madonna, and the Eagles. I knew nothing about hip-hop. I didn't even know Tupac was dead. But I wanted to fit in with my friends, so I started consuming any hip-hop I could find. That's when I discovered BET. BET stands for Black Entertainment Television. It is an American television network for the urban community. I later learned that the word urban is just another word for black people. BET featured urban TV series, urban music, and urban gospel on Sundays. Tuning into BET was like opening Pandora's box to a whole new American world. I went from watching cartoons on Nickelodeon to studying Rap City on BET. I was mesmerized by the colorful hip-hop culture. Every day, rappers like 50 Cent would come on Rap City wearing triple XL basketball jerseys with massive diamond chains on their necks and count down the best urban music videos. Each music video was a portal into a whole new world that I'd never seen before. When I saw Jay-Z's Big Pimpin' music video for the first time, it changed my life. For those of you who don't remember Big Pimpin' or are too white to be aware of it, Big Pimpin' was the greatest music video of all time. It featured hundreds of beautiful women in bikinis partying on a $1 million yacht as three rappers named Jay-Z, Bun B, and Pimp C poured champagne on them for 4 minutes straight. And the girls were loving it. My 15-year-old immigrant brain couldn't even process what I was seeing. This is America? I'm fucking in. Big Pimpin' was the epitome of the American dream, and I needed to be a part of it. I wanted to be like these larger-than-life American superheroes they call rappers. I wanted to be a pimp like Jay-Z and a gangster like 50 Cent. I made it my life's goal to live the Big Pimpin' lifestyle. Whenever I watched BET, I forgot I was a small foreign Chinese boy, and I felt like a badass gangster. I started imitating how the rappers walked and how they talked. I would go up to my classmates and say, "Yo, what up, dog? Our geometry teacher is a bitch, homie. She tripping." I learned how to speak proper American English from watching BET. I consumed at least 3 hours of music videos a day. These music videos were snippets of different versions of the American dream. They shaped my adolescence and they inspired me way beyond my high school years. Aside from Big Pimpin', here are some of my favorite videos that taught me about America. Top 5 music videos for me, and this is in no particular order. Number 1, Cisco, Thong Song. This was one of the first songs I heard on American radio. It was catchy as hell, but I had no idea what a song was. Then I saw the music video, and everything made sense. There was so much booty in that music video that I almost slapped the TV. I didn't even know booty was a point of attraction on the opposite sex until the thong song. Nobody had booties like that in Hong Kong. I learned what thick meant as a compliment, or thick. And I got a whole new appreciation for thick girls after watching this video. Thanks, Cisco. Number 2, Lil Jon and the East Side Boys, Get Low. 369, Damn She Fine. This was America's introduction to crunk music. It was high-energy Southern hip-hop with a sense of humor. I sang that every day in school. Till, skeet, 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 skeet. It took me a year to realize what skeet actually meant. Go ahead, look it up on Urban Dictionary. This song was a quintessential soundtrack on my high school years. We even gave one girl in school a nickname, 369, because, well, damn she fine. Number 3, 50 Cent and Snoop Dogg, P.I.M.P. I didn't know what a pimp truly meant until I saw this music video. I looked up the word pimp in a dictionary, and apparently pimping seemed to be an illegal activity. 50 Cent and Snoop Dogg gave pimping a whole new meaning. They were strutting with their pimp canes, riding in a Rolls Royce, and dancing with the most beautiful girls. A pimp is simply a man who is living the American dream. Pimp became the ultimate compliment. Everybody wanted to be a pimp. And so did I. Number 4, Big Timers, Still Fly. Birdman and Manny Fresh defined hood rich. This whole song was basically the dictionary description for hood rich. I might never understand that mentality to spend what you don't have, but it was awesome to see 2 ballers on a budget. Number 5, Nelly, Country Grammar. Oh man, who doesn't remember this song? Nelly brought out the whole neighborhood in St. Louis in this video. They weren't in any Rolls Royces or yachts. It was hundreds of people dancing at a block party with Cadillacs in St. Louis barbecue. They looked like they were having more fun with nothing fancy at all. This was the American neighborhood party I wanted to be at. It was the hip-hop party I could relate to. Another BET show that absolutely fascinated me was Comic View. It was an urban stand-up comedy showcase with urban stand-up comedians performing in front of an urban audience talking about urban stereotypes. This was my first exposure to stand-up comedy. And it was more than just funny to me. It was unrestrained, dynamic, and culturally relevant. I couldn't really understand what the comedians were saying, and I was lost on the stereotypes they were referring to. It was like a whole new language to me. I have no concept of the credit system in America, let alone the stereotype of black people having bad credit. I didn't understand why white people were always doing crazy shit like skydiving and hiking that black people would never do. And I didn't understand what it meant when a comedian said, "Mama tripping." Did his mom trip and fall over on the floor? Is she okay? Even though I couldn't understand half of the bits, I was enthralled by the performances. Comic View was a slice of real American culture that I'd never known before. I thought to myself, if I can understand Comic View, I would understand everything about America. So I watched BET Comic View religiously for 3 years, and I learned about this country from the realest American educators, comedians. They weren't just telling jokes, they were making insightful observations from a unique point of view. Rap City taught me American English. Comic View enlightened me about American culture. These shows had a huge influence on my life. I soon found my first love in making hip-hop music before I eventually became a stand-up comedian. I couldn't rap for shit, but I wanted so badly to be a part of this glamorous rap game that I seen on Rap City. Chris had downloaded a bootleg copy of Sony's Acid Music Studio, a beat-making software, and he started cranking out some sick beats. Then Jeremy, Phil, and I would go to Chris's mom's apartment and record our raps on his $5 computer microphone. Next thing you know, we'd formed a rap group just like NWA. Chris's mom's apartment and his Dell laptop became a recording studio. We felt like the real deal and we called ourselves Syndicate. The first time I recorded at Chris's house, he played me a beat he had just made. It sounded like a real track I heard on Rap City. I pulled out my trigonometry notebook and I was ready to write my first rhymes, but I had no idea where to start. So, Chris, what do I write? I don't know. Just write anything you want. Chris was like the Dr. Dre to my Eazy-E. Okay, but how much should I write? Oh, I think you need like 16 bars. I understood that bars were some kind of quantifier for lyrics and not stickers bars. Is a bar one word? Is it a full sentence? Or can it be like a fragment? Chris saw the confusion on my face and explained, Jimmy, one bar is one line that is 4 beats. Oh, yeah, I got that, totally. I had no idea what a beat was. This was like one of those stupid dictionary descriptions where they explain a word with the same word you don't understand. Like pathological, of or relating to pathology. If I knew what pathology meant, I wouldn't have asked for the definition of pathology. Stupid dictionary. But I went with it. I flipped past this trigonometry homework in my notebook and started writing down my first 16 bars. Don't hate the player 'cause the player don't play. Haters talk shit, but the bullet stays. And those were the first 2 bars I ever wrote. It was 2 uninspired, fraudulent lines copied from what I heard on BET. What bullet? I was an A student in Beverly Hills High School. I should have been rapping about the Pythagorean theorem, but I wanted to be a gangster-ass rapper, so I rapped about sex, drugs, and gangbanging. In reality, I was a virgin who had a 7 o'clock curfew. Come on, man. I scribbled down another 14 bars of garbage, and I was ready to make my first gangster rap song. Chris held up the $5 computer mic, and I started spitting my first 16 bars. 2 seconds in, Chris stopped me. I'm like, whoa, what happened? I was curious as in why he had stopped my incredible flow. Jimmy, you're not on beat. What do you mean I'm not on beat? I wasn't challenging him. I actually didn't know what being on beat meant. Jimmy, you have to rap to the rhythm of the music. You have to be on beat. I had no idea that I was supposed to be matching the rhythm of the music. I was literally just talking over the track. When Chris played me the beat again, I mechanically bobbed my head to the kicks and snares, but I couldn't follow the tempo. And that's when I realized that this was exactly what the Comic View comedians meant when they said, white people got no rhythm. This Chinese boy got no rhythm. When the other kids were busy chasing girls and scoring booze, we went to Chris's house to make music. The thought of maybe getting on BET Rap City one day gave us something to strive for. But more importantly, making music gave us an identity. We weren't the random kids who hung out by the cafeteria anymore. We were now the kids who made hip-hop. We made a full-length rap album with that $5 microphone, and we pushed those CDs to everyone we knew in class. We'll burn the CDs and each carry a Walkman in class, showing people the songs. Hey, check out our tracks. Get it before we blow up, man. We're gonna go platinum, homie. That was my sales pitch. I think we ended up selling 3 copies of that album for a total proceed of $15. So technically, we were only 499,997 records away from going platinum. We made just enough money to recoup for the $5 computer mic and a $10 stack of CD-ROMs. Oh, guys, you guys gotta check out this PDF, because there's a really sweet picture of me, Chris, Phil, and Jeremy, the syndicate, throwing up random gang signs in there. God, I look like a virgin. We even performed at the Battle of the Bands in our high school wearing ridiculous iron-on matching syndicate t-shirts. Most people thought we were completely ridiculous, and rightfully so. But it was the first time anyone even noticed us. A skinny half-white guy, 2 Persian dudes, and a Chinese immigrant rapping about gangster shit. We looked more like a sketch comedy group than a rap group. Chris decided to take music more seriously, so he recruited 2 other friends from our school to our rap group who could actually rap. Yuji, a half-black, half-Japanese dude who acted like 2 black dudes. And Julian, a quietly cool black dude who was a great rapper. Jeremy, Phil, and I would eventually get phased out of Chris's songs, and rightfully so. We fucking sucked. So I took matters into my own hands and downloaded a bootleg beat-making program called Fruity Loops and started making my own beats. I even came up with a producer name, Doc West, an uninspired attempt to combine my 2 favorite hip-hop producers, Dr. Dre and Kanye West. I sat in front of my computer for 4 hours a day in an attempt to come up with something decent. Then in an ultimate coup d'etat, I recruited Yuji and Julian to join my own rap group. The 3 of us would be a perfect balance of 1.5 Asian guys and 1.5 black guys. I named our rap group the Yellow Panthers. In hindsight, I'm very surprised nobody beat me up for coming up with that name. I guess I've always been more of a comedian than a musician. But Yellow Panthers for life, son. I was the worst rapper alive. I didn't even have the concept of a bar or a beat. That's like a car mechanic who has never heard of an engine or transmission. I wanted to live the rapper lifestyle, but I didn't know the first thing about rap. I wasn't an artist. I was a fraud. But in the process of struggling to stay on beat, I discovered my first creative outlet. It didn't matter if our songs were going to make it on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. We felt like we were making something of ourselves. With a bootleg software, a $5 microphone, and some shitty lyrics, we made something out of nothing. Best of all, we didn't need permission to make this. There were no rules. It felt like the opposite of everything I had to follow in school and in my family. I smelled the independent spirit of hip-hop. It smelled like America, which I guess happened to smell like the fumes coming out of an old Dell computer at Chris's mom's apartment. But for the first time, I felt like I was freely frolicking in the streets without parental supervision like an American kid. Too cool for prom, but not really. I never got a record deal, but I experienced creative freedom for the first time. I still was nowhere close to being popular. I never went to any fancy Beverly Hills high school house parties. I never smoked weed in front of the swim gym, and I never went to prom. Not that I didn't want to do those things. I never got invited to them. I spent the rest of my high school career holding on to the music. It was the only thing that kept me from being a complete loser. I wanted to go to prom with a high school sweetheart. I mean, who wouldn't? But I had no date in sight. So I just said fuck it and pretended to be the cool antisocial kid who didn't even care about prom. A part of me felt like I was missing out in life, but the other part convinced myself, who cares? You were never trying to fit in anyways. Own the coolness of being a rebel badass who don't give a shit about prom. I remember that night when everyone else went to prom. I was sitting at home watching Mad TV with my dad. We loved that show and we've always preferred it over SNL. My dad always got very excited when the hilarious Bobby Lee came on screen. Any Asian person who made it on American television was a big deal. At that time, it was just Bobby Lee and Yao Ming. That night, my dad never asked me, hey, why aren't you going to prom? He didn't even know what prom was. If he did know about it, he would probably call it stupid American bullshit, especially if he found out how much money he'll have to fork out for my tux rental. The only person that ever pressured me to go to prom was Phil's mom, a nice Persian woman named Fariba. During my senior year, every time I went over to Phil's house, Fariba would say to me, Jimmy, you have to go to prom. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Fariba, it's okay. I don't want to spend the money. I don't want to tell her the actual reason was I didn't have a date in sight. Jimmy June. June is an endearing term you put after someone's name in Farsi. Jimmy June, I'll pay the money. You have to go, or you'll regret it for your whole life. An all-expense-paid prom trip still doesn't sound that great if you don't have a date. Fariba June, I jokingly responded, Namikhom, which in Farsi means, I don't want. I fended off Fariba for the rest of the year with the Farsi phrases I picked up from hanging out with my Persian friends, which was the official second language of Beverly Hills High School. Maybe I'm still in denial, but I never regretted not going to prom. One thing I did really want to do in high school was to join the football team. I wanted to live the all-American dream of scoring a touchdown under the Friday night lights and spiking the ball in the end zone. I was pretty fast and I had some actual ball skills. My dream was to play kick return like my hero Dante Hall. He was 5'7" just like me, and he was the kick return specialist who played for the Kansas City Chiefs. He would weave and juke defensive players twice his size and score 100-yard touchdowns without ever getting touched. It was amazing. I thought I could be just like Dante Hall, so I went to my dad and asked him to sign a waiver for me to play football. He never even considered it for a moment. He just laughed right in my face. Oh, Jimmy, you? Football? Come on. But Dad, I'm fast and I am not signing paper that will make you die. And he was probably right. I was 100 pounds soaking wet. I would have gotten concussed just sitting on the bench. My fragile body was never destined to play anything more than a serious game of ping pong. I eventually graduated high school as a bona fide virgin with a 3.9 GPA. People might have remembered me as the ridiculous rapper kid who watched too much BET, but I was no longer the weird foreign kid. I felt pretty good about that. I never got to slow dance with my lover at prom or play football at homecoming, but I had an authentic American high school experience. I found a group of friends who came from every part of the world and we bonded over Jay-Z. To me, that is more American than scoring a touchdown under the Friday night lights. The pinnacle of my music career. Years later, when I was in college, I hit the pinnacle of my music career when I received a phone call from an unknown number. I picked up the phone and a man with a gravelly voice asked, "Are you Doc West?" "Yeah, that's me." I was ecstatic that it was actually a call for hip-hop producer Doc West, not Jimmy. That's great. I heard your beats online. I love them." "Is this a dream? This is amazing." "Thank you, sir." Then he introduced himself. "My name is LeBron James." "Excuse me? You are LeBron James? I almost shitted myself." No, it's LeBron James." "Okay, sorry. Nice to meet you, LeBron." "Are you, by chance, a religious person?" Weird question. No, not really." "You're not a serious Christian or anything, are you?" "No, I'm not really religious. Why?" "Well, this is probably a Jehovah's Witness guy complimenting my beats to lure me into their religion. I should have known it was too good to be true." LeBron continued. "Okay, that's great. Because religious people don't agree with my line of work." "Ah, drug dealer. Cool. As long as he wanted to buy some of my beats, I didn't care if he sold crack to babies. I don't judge." "I'm actually in the adult entertainment business." LeBron finally dropped the bomb. "I make porn, and I perform in it." I wasn't sure how to feel about that. A bit impressed, I guess. I quietly nodded. "Oh, that's cool." That was my only response. LeBron started opening up, and he talked with more excitement. "I love your beats, man. I want to buy a couple of them to put in my movies." "Yeah, for sure. That would be awesome." I knew this was a story I'll be able to tell for the rest of my life. "That's great. I want to put one of your beats in a new trailer for my website. It's called fudgestick.com. Check it out when you get a chance." And I indeed went and checked out fudgestick.com for research purposes, of course. The name was pretty on the nose. It was LeBron and his massive fudge stick having sex with MILFs. If you don't know what MILF means, look it up when you're alone. 2 weeks later, my beats was on the front page of fudgestick.com, accompanying LeBron's performance in a hardcore porno trailer. When LeBron's purchased my beat, I officially became a professional musician, and I guess also a professional pornographer. This was the pinnacle of my music career, the highlight of my life. Fudgestick.com wrote me my first paycheck in show business. P.S. Fudgestick.com is no longer operating. I checked for research purposes. Maybe I'll show the world my Fudgestick.com music video trailer on The Tonight Show someday. We'll figure something out. We can't quite attach it to that PDF. Chapter 4. How to get high. My parents gonna love this chapter. For Asian kids, going to college is like going to elementary school. It's mandatory. Asian parents are never proud of you for going to college. They're just not disappointed. "Dad, I got into college." "So? Your cousin has 3 PhDs from Harvard." Both my first and second college choices were in Los Angeles, UCLA and USC, and they both unequivocally rejected me. I had good grades, but I didn't have enough extracurricular activities because apparently the Yellow Panthers wasn't a legitimate activity to these highbrow admission officers. Maybe I should have included fudgestick.com on my college resume. Fuck these people. I was, however, accepted by UC San Diego, the San Diego sister school of UCLA. I thought that was basically UCLA by the beach, so I went in blind without even visiting the campus. People used to always tell me, college is the best 4 years of your life. Enjoy it. That's way too much pressure. And that's saying after you graduate college, everything is downhill from there. What a morbid thought. Not only was college not the best 4 years of my life, it turned out to be the worst 5 years of my life. I hated the school part of college, and I despised the social part of UCSD. There was zero school spirit in UCSD. Our mascot was called a Triton. It's a naked old man holding up a fork. Our sports teams all sucked. There were no Division I teams other than water polo, fencing, and men's volleyball. UCSD focused on academics and sports that nobody cared about. While my brother was partying at the UCLA versus USC rivalry football game at the Rose Bowl with 100,000 people, I was watching the Tritons men's volleyball team in an empty gymnasium. The only cool thing in UCSD was its proximity to the beach and the surfing culture in San Diego. But I could barely swim. When my dad took me to the beach in Hong Kong when I was 3, I cried and begged him not to put me near the water. I was born to be a land dweller. I ended up spending the better part of my college career smoking weed to mentally escape from UCSD. UCSD's student body was made up of a majority of Asian students. I was, of course, one of them, but I didn't want to be lumped in with everyone else. I was used to being different. So I tried my hardest to be the opposite of a stereotypical Asian student. I grew my hair out down to my shoulders, I started smoking weed, and I never went to class. The holy trinity of an underachieving party kid from Arizona State. The only difference is, I wasn't even getting laid. I wasn't trying to be a bad boy. It was just a cry for help to stand out in a school with 20,000 students. I felt like my identity was being judged based on the other Asians around me instead of my own personality. My inside voice screamed, I listen to Jay-Z, motherfuckers! In high school, I didn't want to be perceived as a weird foreign kid. And in college, I didn't want to be perceived as the same as everyone else. I had a new identity crisis. And I found that one way to not be another Asian is to smoke so much weed that you transcend from being Asian into being a stoner. If someone asked, hey, do you know that kid Jimmy from dorm 706? I wanted people to say, yeah, the kid who's high all the time, instead of, oh yeah, that Asian kid. I went into UC San Diego as a mechanical engineering major, but I was smoking way too much weed to keep up with the engineering curriculum. At the highness that I was, it would have taken me 17 years to graduate with an engineering degree. I had no idea what I wanted to do, so I switched my major to economics, the easiest major that Asian parents would still approve of. I didn't give a shit about the economy. How was I supposed to care about fiscal policies when I only had student loan debts? As long as weed was $20 a gram, the Federal Reserve was doing their job. I ended up graduating UCSD after 5 long years with a pathetic 2.7 GPA. I basically Daniel Day-Lewis'd myself into being a stoner who didn't care about grades, and at some point I actually started to believe I was this stoner character. There's a Chinese saying that describes when someone goes too deep into something and lose themselves in it. In Cantonese, it's 走火入魔, which literally translates to the fire leaves and the devil enters. In my case, it was the brain leaves and the THC enters. How to get deported. Tijuana is a Mexican border town just south of San Diego, where all the underage college kids in San Diego go to party. It's a dirty cesspool of sins, which translates to a Disneyland for college students. There are dance clubs, strip clubs, clubs with donkeys, cocaine, sex, and everything a college student could dream of. During my freshman year of UCSD, my dorm mate John and I went on our first trip to Tijuana with our friend Ian. Ian grew up in San Diego and had been going to Tijuana since high school, and he knew all the party spots. He was like our gringo Gandalf of Tijuana. We got off the San Diego City trolley around 10 p.m. ready for some shenanigans. We walked over the border and took a Mexican taxi to Revolution Boulevard, where all the debaucheries go down. It was a street filled with dance clubs and strip clubs with neon lights accented by the smell of tacos and used condoms. It was glorious. Right as we got off the cab, A shady Mexican man wearing a cheap suit and sunglasses approached us. Titties? He motioned his hands like two titties bouncing on his chest. Of course we stopped and listened. He repeated, titties? Titty bar? As intriguing as that sounded, our plan was to go to a nightclub first, so we politely declined and we kept walking. Then he followed us down the street and kept on pushing. Titties? Sucky sucky? Fucky fucky? He was getting shadier by each word. Titties? Titties? Cocaine? Heroin? It escalated quickly, as he finally gave up and he just yelled out, Maricon! Within the first 30 seconds of arriving in Tijuana, we were offered titties, blowjobs, and cocaine. Us three maricons knew we were in for a wild night. Ian led us to a dance club on Revolution Boulevard. It was $20 for an all-you-can-drink dance club party. We treated that bar like starving refugees at Hometown Buffet. Next thing I knew, we're hammered, fist-bumping in the middle of a sweaty Mexican dance club, and John was nowhere to be found. Shit, he probably went to that titty bar by himself, I said to Ian. Then we heard the crowd cheering on the other side of the club, and we saw John in the middle of the commotion. He was dancing like Beyonce as water was pouring onto his head from the upstairs balcony. John was having the time of his life. Ian and I looked up and we realized it wasn't water being poured on John. It was actually a dude pissing onto John's head from upstairs. And John was way too drunk to realize he had been christened in a Mexican golden shower. No way. I looked at Ian in disbelief. We have to get him out of there. John! Ian screamed. Come on, let's go! John was more excited than I'd ever seen him. Guys, this is amazing! Ian and I looked at each other, not sure what to say. John yelled across from the club, They're pouring water on me, and the whole crowd is going crazy! This is awesome! We just nodded and let him have it. We figured it would be better if he never found out. And I hope John never reads this book. When we finally got out of the club, all the hustlers, drug dealers, and prostitutes flocked to us like a pack of vultures. We ducked into this hole-in-the-wall taco shop to calm down from the overstimulation. We sat down on the high stools with a couple of Dos Equis in front of a hot iron skillet filled with taco meat. The chubby Mexican lady with a red apron started heating up the little corn tortillas. She masterfully scooped a spoonful of meat, sprinkled a garnish of onion and cilantro, and flipped the taco onto the plate right in front of our drooling mouths. I was skeptical about the corn tortillas at first. From what my grandpa taught me in El Pollo Loco, it's flour or nothing. So I asked the lady, Do you have flour tortilla? She didn't even bother to look at me. Ian, a Tijuana taco shop veteran, said, Dude, nobody does flour tortillas here. You sound like an idiot gringo. Eat the corn ones. They're delicious. I reluctantly bit into the corn-wrapped carne asada taco, and I realized I had been living a lie. This corn tortilla tasted like Selma Hayek's lips. The sweet corn taste and the grainy texture layered with the meat, onion, cilantro transported me to a Mexican nirvana. I wanted to cry and hug the chubby Mexican lady who made this perfect taco, but I was a little bit too drunk to stand up straight. And we decided we had had enough excitement for one night, and it would probably be a good idea to head back to San Diego before another golden shower hits us. So we called the cab back to the border. But this wasn't where the story ended. It was where it began. Going into Mexico from the United States was a wide-open revolving door with almost no security. Crossing the border from Mexico to the United States was quite the opposite. The border crossing point was a gray windowless cement tunnel with metal barriers. Instead of wide-open revolving doors, there were Border Patrol agents with guards carrying assault rifles standing right behind them. This was no place to fuck around. I was a bit worried because we were all pretty drunk and John smelled like pee. But we tried blinking really hard a few times to sober ourselves up. A drunk person's futile